British have a great way of being quite pessimistic, whereas I think actually, if you think of the internet came along and all the bookshops were going to be dead and knitting's definitely out, well actually there's a resurgence in knitting, there's a resurgence in books. The advent of the electric car is a marvel and a fantastic necessity for the future, and I don't doubt within 5 or 10 years we'll all be driving electric cars. However, I think there will always be a place for a car that you really can drive, that you can feel the wind in your hair from the steering to the brakes. And so I think our iconic British brands, Vintage Bentleys particularly, have got a great future, and I think people are going to want to drive them and want to be out there because it's real. And so people like Derek Bell who pick up racing Vintage Bentleys at Le Mans, which he's done, and Goodwood supporting with events, and the myriad of rallies which are going all around the world. It's a huge, serious industry, so I think there's a huge market there. So we will do all we can as a business to support those events and rallies wherever they are in the world, and pushing Vintage Bentleys to the front of that. Whenever there's the result sheets come in, we want to see Vintage Bentleys near the top or up the top. It's a duty to the business, and any CEO needs to be able to bring people together and bring the right team together, and recognising that this is a proper little business. It's grown from a fledgling bag of spanners and a lock-up garage into what it is today. So to protect it and to look after it, to nurture it, it is about bringing those right people together. A head of manufacturing has a significant input into other major global brands, and employing proper, real engineers. We have one graduate with us. She's a rising star of the future. So she's very switched on.
I've always wanted to work on cars, and that's why I came to UK and specialized in automotive engineering. I was looking for something more modern to start with. I've looked into all the big auto manufacturers, see if there's something interests me. But this job happens to come up on my research, and I thought that's brilliant. It's involved in engines, involved in chassis, suspension. You've got a lot of opportunities to develop yourself as an engineer with this KTP partnership, and I applied for it, and luckily I got the job. It's funded by Innovate UK, so the project is a partnership between University of Surrey and William Medcalf. I started from scratch to build a completely new 4.5-litre Bentley engine. We are able to source and manufacture all of the parts, well, more or less all of the parts. Some of the things like magnetos you can't possibly buy from new. Yes. So it's a test engine, especially for this project. It allows me to gather some data of a baseline spec engine.
Our knowledge transfer project is all about upskilling our workforce with the technologies and the abilities that are out there today, cutting edge, which not only helps us grow as a business, but it in turn feeds the university with problems to solve which they love. So we are very much at the forefront of automotive engineering, even though we have a 90-year-old product, because no one else is doing that. So they've got a rich seam of challenges, and we've got a great collaborator.
The limit is to keep it as original as it can be, but there are a lot of things. If you look inside of an engine block, there's a lot of capacity for you to further develop it, and there's a lot of ways to actually change the dimension of it. And with my simulation software, I could theoretically estimate how much performance I will get. So that's the way forward, and that allows me to change the engine performance. In real world, you wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that you imagine to do, but in the software you could.
Rapid prototyping is a good tool, and even though the cars are 90 years old, there's no reason why you can't apply modern business techniques, there's modern engineering techniques to this old industry. And I'm just probably the first of my generation to pick it up and look at it in a serious manner, to best achieve results out of all of what we do, whether it's engineering or the business or whatever. The UK is a £5.5 billion motorsport industry. If you look at places like Goodwood and the events that are run, it's not going to go anywhere fast in terms of disappearing, but it is going everywhere fast in the way of what our output is. And so for the country, it's great that there is this investment in motorsport.
I came from a more modern engineering background, and I'm not used to gear-driven camshaft. I'm not used to monoblock. There's a lot of things that I had to learn, so that was quite a challenge. But in the end, it's all the same. It's engineering. It's the ancestor of all the other cars. We may buck the trend, but we know no borders. We're a business that doesn't sleep. We're available 24/7 and globally. And we have there's a rally on literally on this minute in Saigon. We have 2 members of staff which are vaccinated, and as a precaution, and if the phone call comes, they'll be on the next flight.
Where did that passion come from? How did you get started in such a narrow field, automotive field?
The passion really started with my father. When I was 5 years old, his idea of a family holiday was 28,000 miles around America. We had a 4.5 litre Bentley, and he wanted to go and prove it and make sure that it was a good car. So my 2 elder sisters and my father, we set sail. We did every coastal road and across America and back, up through Canada. And so looking out the rear window of a vintage Bentley, meeting new people every day. The different states in America are very diverse. So meeting new people, new faces, the challenges of getting an old car around a trip like that was set me up for wanting to travel, wanting to meet people, and the reliance that a vintage Bentley offers as a pre-war car is truly fantastic. You know, there are some great pre-war makes, but Bentley is a premier of that. It's still a global brand today, and it's certainly the excitement of the Bentley Boys and the L'Amour history is undeniably attractive. So I realised that if you're going to do something, do it well, and do one thing well rather than many things badly. So it soon became self-evident that to focus on one mark, just 10 years of production, but to try and master that would be an aim. My father was a toolmaker by trade, so growing up he said, you know, son, you can be anything you want, be an accountant, do whatever you want to do, but I'm going to teach you some hand skills, and at least through life you'll be able to fix the kitchen sink. So as a young boy, I used to stand on a wooden stool, which I still have, and he'd teach me to drill and hacksaw and file and so on. And slowly over the years, I helped him repair the family car. So he gave me a hand skill set and an engineering interest, which I then took on to college and went into engineering. And I was going to go into the plastics industry. And Dad just said to me, you know, you like working on Bentleys, you love cars, and you love what you do. Well, we've got a spare lock-up garage at the family yard. Why don't you give it 6 months and see how you get on? Many of our rally cars that we look after, we have a predetermined schedule. You find out that the car comes back from at one event, and then we have a 3-week turnaround time, and it's being shipped on the next event, and then it will come back from that event, and it literally may be over a weekend or 3 days, and then he's off onto another event. And so our service schedule windows are sometimes quite tight. Project management is key. We don't like anything really to go over 12 months. Anybody will get bored of a job after 12 months. So any car that comes in, we can certainly turn it around in that time. The ability that we can make anything, we can source anything, is again another key factor. But good project management, and be able to explain to a client where we are financially, where we are with the physical project, and internally knowing where we are week by week, is all strength.
There's a big team for us. It's not just a one-man thing. There's several people in the workshop working away. We got people in the office, and things are planned out, all the procedures. So it's a big team effort to get these projects through and getting all the work done. So it's an awful lot of effort goes into seeing some of these cars being built from the ground up. and having everything in place at the right time with the right people. We tend to use engineers. We employ engineers rather than mechanics, mainly because we need people who can problem solve, take something off the car, have a look why it's worn, why it's not working properly, and come up with a solution, and maybe manufacture a replacement part, get it back on the car, make sure it's safe, make sure it's original. And so these are the sort of skills we want, because obviously this is in a modern garage, we can't plug it into the laptop and see what the issue is. So some very practical, hands-on problem-solving skills are required by the people that work here. We do have a couple of guys in the workshop who are in their 20s. They've come to us from a regular mechanical background, and they're picking the skills up, and we just got past, the older guys got past the skills onto them, because otherwise we just get to a point where the whole place will stop. So it's really important to pass these skills on to people. So it's all about passing this knowledge on to a younger generation, and which isn't a problem, because some of these younger guys, they're keen to pick it up and find out how this stuff works and how it used to work back in the day. So to assume that we've just got a bunch of old guys tinkering with cars here wouldn't be correct. It's definitely a business that's moving into a younger generation.
In the past year, I grew a lot of interest in vintage and classic cars. And I found them interesting not just for the engineering value of it, but also for their history, for their artistic, for their design. And I'm very much willing to stay as in the vintage classic car industry. And I think there's a lot of things that I can do in this industry. If modern motorsport technology develop from this, then of course we can take the modern technology back and revise what people have designed many, many years ago.
It was a 4-cylinder Bentley, and somebody came in and asked us to mechanically completely rebuild the car so that we could pretty much warranty it for the next 10 years or so. Then you'd probably spend £250,000 to completely go through it and set the car up for the future. We've done that several times before. We've got a growing list of clients who like that service. They give us a car, we find them a car, and we just completely go through it. So there are no stone left unturned. And then we can absolutely back them up anywhere they go in the world. And the testament to that is last year, we had one client who had exactly that service, and he completed 16,000 competitive rally miles in 6 months.
So we just specialise in the WOs, so yeah, whatever the problem is, whatever the destination for the car, or whatever the client wants to do with it, whether it be to use it as a daily driver or whether to build him a car that's going to go from Peking to Paris, is what we do. And when the car leaves here, it'll be safe and fit for purpose and totally reliable, and we could provide our clients with all the backup they need. We know for sure that that car is going to serve their purposes as required. The great part of the business at the moment, the rally scene is just booming at the moment, not just with Bentleys but with all pre-war cars, because people realise they want to buy cars and get into a scene where they can actually go and enjoy the cars rather than look at them as static displays. So some of these cars, yeah, definitely we will prepare it, they'll go do an event somewhere, it will come back, we will go through it, service it, fix anything that needs fixing, and then the client will take it off on another event, and off it goes again, and at the end of that next event it's back again. So it's a great business, and the clients just love the knowledge that they've got this reliable car that they can just drive around the world in, and they will have no issues with it. We
first found a dismantled car in a house, and then it transpired that it was a little more, and that it was quite a rare car. The body was thought to be beyond repair. You know, using the right people, we very carefully managed to salvage it all and get it back together. It was a bit touch and going at times, but it was one of 8 built. It was a drop head by Victor Broom, and so we believe the last surviving one. The car itself, the mechanical components, the engine still bore the original lead seal, which was fitted in 1928, so there aren't many vehicles like that. It soon became apparent that our responsibility was not to restore that car, but to carefully clean it all, put it all back together, save the body and put it back as it was. So the car today's only done 39,000 miles from new. It's so correct in detail, we literally sifted the dirt to find every last nut, bolt and washer. And the gentleman that stripped it did a fantastic job of labelling parts and so on. So we can honestly say the car is probably 98% original, and it stands as a testament to how the original finishes were achieved. We've not polished anything. So it today stands as a benchmark for how a vintage Bentley was and how it was constructed. And so that's nice, a nice little time capsule. Again, we see the market moving on from the highly polished concours cars. Certainly England's leading the way in that, which is sometimes referred to as the oily rag look, but certainly the honest car look. It does come down to the owner. So if an owner had bought that car that wanted it pin perfect and ready for a big concours, then we would have suggested that it wasn't a car for him. He very much was supportive in the preservation of that car and keeping it honest and as it should be and as it left the factory. So he was absolutely the right owner for the car.
What is it in the workshop that gives you the greatest pleasure as an engineer?
Well, any of it to see the car done, anything to see the car leave the workshop on time. But the biggest buzz is to see the client either collect their car or come back from an event or come back from having the car through the summer and seeing the smile on their face because they've had just so much fun driving the car and taking part in events, whatever. And that's the biggest thrill, is just seeing really happy clients that have had a while of a time in a product that we've prepared for them.
Our father had a Speed 6 when we went travelling in a 3.5, and when we came home he decided that it just wasn't quick enough. So he knew he wanted a Speed 6, and 35 years later we still have it. My sisters and I look after that, and that will hopefully stay in the family in perpetuity. So.
And used to give that a run out occasionally, because it's not just about putting cars in museums, it's about driving.
Not at all. All these cars get driven, and the best way I think to see a car is coming sideways through a chicane, so they're there to be driven.